and welcome to the Motley Fools Ask a Foolish Question video. I'm Sonia Rahill and with me is David Quo, and today we're here to talk about stop losses. David, what are they?
Well, stop losses are exactly what they do. They stop you from making losses. And the way they work is that you put a price in place so that if the shares that you own falls below that price, then the broker will just sell the shares for you automatically. And so therefore stopping you from making any further losses if they were to fall below your stop loss price.
Okay, so how do they work, and can you give us an example?
Well, of course I can, yes. Let's say, for instance, that you bought a share Burberry, which I own, by the way. And let's say you bought the Burberry shares at £12 a share. And you find that the Burberry shares have risen from £12 to £14. Now, at that price, you start thinking, well, what is going to happen to these shares? Well, you could put a stop loss in place at £12, which therefore means that if the shares were to fall from £14 to £12, then the broker will sell the shares for you. So if they fall below £12, you're not going to make a loss because remember, you bought those shares at £12 a share.
Okay.
But there is a slight problem with that, and that is let's say, for instance, again, that you bought these Burberry shares at £12 a share and they rise up to £14. But because of the kind of stock market volatility that we have, then you could find yourself in a position where you will be stopped out of the shares even though you don't want to be. And a classic example of the Burberry shares was a recent trading update in the case of Burberry. It issued a trading update and the market didn't really like what it heard. So the shares fell from £14 to £10 a share. Now, if you had that stop loss in place at £12 a share, well, you would be sitting there looking very smug and say, wasn't I very clever? Because I got stopped out of the shares, they fell to £10 a share, and it stopped me from making a huge amount of losses. But what happened in the case of Burberry was that the shares bounced back. Now I'm going to demonstrate the Burberry shares for you using these two balls. This multicolored ball here is the one that's got the stop loss in place. The green ball, the green solid ball on the other hand, didn't have the stop loss in place. Now what happened when Burberry issued the trading update was that both shares fell. So there they go. But look what happened to the multicolored ball. It didn't bounce back. But in the case of the green ball, it did bounce back because you haven't got a stop loss in place. And that is what happened with the Burberry shares. The trading update was not very well received. The shares fell to £10 a share, and now they're back up again at £11.50. So anyone who didn't have a stop loss in place, such as myself, would still be holding those Burberry shares.
Okay, it sounds like it's not the kind of strategy that you'd use if you were a long-term investor.
Well, you see, one of the big problems, one of the big advantages of stop losses is that it takes the emotions out of investing. So that if you did own the Burberry shares and you love those Burberry shares, well, because you have the stop loss in place, they kicked in and they would sell the shares for you. But you have to remember that the stock market can be a very volatile place. So sometimes you may be forced to sell a share because you've got a stop loss in place, even though you didn't want to sell them in the first place. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not a big fan of stop losses. I quite like it when share prices fall because it gives me an advantage over the rest of the market in order to buy shares, more of them, of the shares that I want to own.
Well, thank you, David. That was a very easy to understand explanation of stop losses. Now, if you have a question for Ask a Foolish Question, please email foolishquestions@fool.co.uk. Thanks for watching.
Investing with balls.